I followed my husband because I felt something was wrong. I never imagined I'd find him in my bed. With the one woman I trusted more than anyone. My best friend. Door creak SFX, hard cut to black. From the outside, my life looked perfect. The kind of life people double tap on Instagram without thinking twice. A quiet American neighborhood. White house. Clean driveway. A porch that smelled like fresh coffee every morning. Cut, slow pan across a neat living room, family photos on the wall. I was a mother. A wife. A woman who believed she had everything figured out. My husband kissed me goodbye every morning. My daughter waved from the window. And I stood there smiling. Thinking this was it. This was the dream everyone talks about. Music slightly darkens. But here's the truth no one tells you. Perfect lives don't crack loudly. They crack quietly. Cut, close-up of Emily's face in the mirror. I didn't see bruises. I didn't hear shouting. There were no obvious fights. Just small changes. Longer nights. Shorter conversations. A smile that didn't reach his eyes anymore. Brief pause, silence. I told myself every marriage goes through phases. Every man gets tired. Every woman overthinks. That's what strong women do, right? They stay calm. They stay trusting. Cut, slow motion family dinner, forced smiles. I believed loyalty lived in routine. In shared meals. In familiar faces. I didn't know routine was the perfect cover for betrayal. Music drops lower. Because while I was busy protecting this perfect life, someone else was learning its layout. Its timing. Its weakest moments. Beat, heartbeat sound fades in. And the lie? The lie wasn't my marriage. The lie was believing that love alone could protect me from the people closest to me. Hard cut to black. Sometimes the safest place hides the deepest danger. Her name was Rachel. And for years, she wasn't just my best friend. She was family. Cut, two women laughing in a cafe, slow motion. We met in college. Late night talks. Shared secrets. Dreams about the future we swore we'd build together. When I got married, Rachel stood right beside me. Smiling. Clapping. Crying happy tears. Music holds, then subtly shifts darker. She held my hand on my wedding day. And whispered. You're so lucky. Don't ever let him go. I didn't know she'd remember those words. For a very different reason. Cut, hospital hallway, newborn baby. When my daughter was born, Rachel was there before anyone else. She took pictures. She brought food. She told me I was going to be an amazing mother. Soft. I trusted her with my child. With my home. With my heart. That kind of trust doesn't come easily. Cut, present day, Rachel entering the house confidently. She had a key to our house. She knew our schedules. Our routines. Our weak spots. She knew when I was tired. When I was busy. When I wasn't paying attention. Short pause, silence. That's the dangerous thing about trust. You stop watching. Cut, kitchen scene, husband and Rachel laughing. She started coming over more often. Too often. At first, it felt normal. Comforting, even. She helped with dinner. Played with my daughter. Talked to my husband like she always had. Slightly uneasy. But something changed. Their laughter lasted a second too long. Their conversations stopped when I walked in. And sometimes, they shared looks I wasn't invited into. Music dips lower. I noticed it. Of course I did. But I pushed it away. Because who suspects their best friend? Who believes the person who calls you sister could be quietly stealing your life? Cut, close-up of Emily watching from a distance. I told myself I was imagining things. That I was tired. That motherhood makes you emotional. I chose comfort over instinct. And that choice gave betrayal all the time it needed to grow. I didn't know then. But the person I trusted most was already standing on the other side of my marriage. Sometimes the knife comes from the hand you never feared. The signs didn't arrive all at once. They slipped in quietly, disguised as normal life. Mark started coming home later than usual. At first, it made sense. His job was demanding, and I didn't want to be the wife who questioned every delay. He'd walk in tired, loosen his tie, scroll on his phone longer than he used to. Conversations became shorter. Eye contact became rare. I told myself marriage changes after kids. Everyone says that. Rachel, on the other hand, seemed more present than ever. She knew exactly when to stop by. Always during Lily's nap. Always when I was busy with laundry or cooking. She'd sit at the kitchen counter, talking casually, like she always had. But something about her attention shifted. She listened more closely to Mark than to me. Laughed at his words just a little longer. Watched him when she thought no one noticed. When I entered the room, the energy changed, not dramatically, just enough to feel off. There were moments that stayed with me. Rachel texting Mark directly instead of the group chat. Mark picking up his phone and turning the screen away. Their conversation stopping mid-sentence when I walked in. None of it was enough to accuse. But all of it was enough to unsettle. One night, I asked Mark if everything was okay. He smiled quickly and said I was imagining things. That work was stressful. That I worried too much. He kissed my forehead and changed the subject. I wanted to believe him. Another time, Rachel hugged me goodbye and said, "You're lucky, you know that?" Her tone felt different. Softer. Almost wistful. I laughed it off. Looking back, I realize how many times my instincts tried to warn me, and how carefully I pushed them aside. Trust has a way of silencing fear. Love teaches you to doubt yourself before doubting the people you care about. So I ignored the heaviness in my chest. The unease I couldn't explain. The feeling that something was slowly slipping out of place. Because admitting suspicion would mean accepting that the two people I trusted most might be capable of hurting me. And I wasn't ready for that truth yet. Not until the night when doubt turned into certainty, and everything I believed finally collapsed. That night started like any other. Dinner dishes in the sink. Lily asleep in her room. The house quiet in the way only a family home can be after a long day. Mark stood by the door adjusting his jacket, already halfway gone. He said he had a late meeting. Didn't sound annoyed. Didn't sound rushed. Just distant. He kissed my cheek instead of my lips and left before I could say much. Minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was Rachel. She texted that she was busy and wouldn't be stopping by. That was unusual. She almost always came over on weekdays. I stared at the message longer than I needed to, feeling something tighten in my chest. 2 separate messages. 2 separate excuses. Arriving at the same time. I tried to shake it off. Sat on the couch. Turned the TV on. Turned it off again. The silence felt heavier than usual, like the house itself was holding its breath. I picked up my phone without thinking and opened the location app Mark insisted we keep for safety. His dot was moving slowly. Toward home. That didn't make sense. My heart began to race, not because I knew the truth, but because I was starting to fear it. I grabbed my keys and told myself I was just stepping out for air. Just driving to clear my head. I followed the route without realizing it. Every turn felt automatic. When I pulled into our street and saw Mark's car already parked in the driveway, my hand started to shake. The lights inside the house were on. That's when I knew whatever was happening wasn't accidental. It wasn't misunderstood. It wasn't innocent. I sat there for a moment, engine running, staring at the place I'd called home for years. Every instinct told me to leave. To turn around and pretend I never came. But I didn't. I stepped out of the car, walked up the driveway, and opened the front door quietly, still hoping, impossibly, that I was wrong. The house was too quiet. And then I heard a sound from the bedroom that confirmed what my heart already knew. I walked down the hallway slowly, every step heavier than the last. The house felt unfamiliar, like I had stepped into someone else's life without permission. The sound came again, soft, careless, intimate. It wasn't loud, but it was clear enough to strip away every last doubt. My hand hovered over the bedroom door. For a moment, I thought about my daughter sleeping down the hall. About the years I had spent believing in this family. About how once I opened that door, nothing would ever return to the way it was. Then I turned the handle. The room was lit softly, the way it always was at night. My bed was unmade. The air smelled wrong, too warm, too lived in. Mark was there. So was Rachel. They weren't startled right away. They were too comfortable. Too familiar. It was the way they moved around each other that hurt the most, like this was something they had done before. Many times. When they finally noticed me, everything stopped. Rachel pulled back first, her face draining of color. Mark froze, standing halfway between guilt and panic. No one spoke. No one rushed to explain. Silence filled the room, thick and unbearable. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stood there, watching the truth settle into place. Rachel whispered my name like it was an apology. Mark opened his mouth, then closed it again. There was nothing he could say that would make sense of what I was seeing. In that moment, I understood something painfully clear. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't sudden. This was planned. Familiar. Rehearsed. My bedroom wasn't just the place they were caught. It was the place they had chosen. I turned away before they could speak. I didn't need answers. The answers were already everywhere, in the way they avoided my eyes, in the way the room felt violated, in the certainty that the life I trusted had been quietly dismantled behind my back. I walked out of the room knowing that whatever came next, I would never forget the image of the two people I loved standing together, exposed not just by what they had done, but by who they truly were. I didn't get far before Mark followed me into the hallway. He called my name softly, like volume alone could fix what he'd done. Rachel stayed behind at first, as if distance might somehow make her less guilty. Mark started talking before I could say a word. He said it wasn't what it looked like. That it just happened. That he never meant for me to find out this way. His sentences ran together, rushed and empty, each one worse than the last. I asked him how long. The question stopped him. Rachel appeared in the doorway then, wrapped in my robe, her eyes red and unfocused. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her, but the sight didn't soften anything inside me. Months, she said quietly. That single word landed harder than anything Mark had said. Months meant planning. Months meant lies stacked on top of lies. Months meant this wasn't an accident, it was a choice they kept making. They spoke over each other after that, both trying to explain, neither really taking responsibility. Mark blamed distance. Stress. Work. Rachel blamed loneliness. Confusion. Feelings she claimed she didn't understand. None of it mattered. What mattered was that they both knew exactly who they were hurting, and did it anyway. I asked them if Lily knew. If they had ever done this while she was home. The room went silent. Mark looked away. Rachel started crying. That was my answer. Something inside me shut down then. The shock faded, replaced by a cold clarity. I realized I wasn't standing in front of two confused people who made a mistake. I was standing in front of two people who had betrayed me in the same way, over and over, without stopping. I told Rachel to leave. She hesitated, like she expected forgiveness. When it didn't come, she walked past me without meeting my eyes and let herself out of the house she no longer belonged in. Mark stood there, waiting for a reaction. Waiting for anger. Waiting for tears. I gave him neither. I walked into my daughter's room and watched her sleep, steady and unaware. In that quiet moment, I understood that whatever choices I made next had to protect her first. And that meant this chapter of my life was already over. I closed my daughter's bedroom door gently, as if any sudden movement might break the fragile calm she slept in. For a moment, I stood there listening to her breathing, steady and peaceful, completely untouched by the storm tearing through the rest of the house. Then I started packing. I didn't rush. I didn't cry. I moved quietly, choosing only what mattered: clothes for Lily, her favorite stuffed animal, a pair of shoes by the door. Every item I picked up felt like a small decision, a step away from the life I had trusted. Mark watched from the hallway. He didn't try to stop me. He didn't apologize again. He just stood there, silent, like he already understood that words had lost their value. When I carried Lily into my arms, she stirred but didn't wake. I held her closer, feeling the weight of responsibility settle fully onto my chest. Whatever pain I was feeling, she didn't deserve to carry any of it. I walked past Mark without looking at him. The space between us felt wider than the years we'd spent together. He reached out once, then let his hand fall back to his side. Outside, the night air was cool and sharp. The same driveway where we had once stood laughing felt unfamiliar now. I placed Lily in the car, buckled her in, and sat behind the wheel for a moment, letting the silence sink in. That was when the reality hit. I wasn't just leaving a house. I was leaving a version of my life that no longer existed. I didn't know where I was going yet. I only knew I couldn't stay. Staying would mean accepting what they'd done. Leaving meant choosing myself, and my child. As I pulled away from the curb, I didn't look back. There was nothing left behind worth returning to. The next morning, the house was quiet in a way that made it feel abandoned. The bed was still unmade. The scent of perfume lingered faintly in the air, like a ghost of what had happened the night before. I didn't go back. I didn't want to see it again. Mark called me non-stop, but I didn't answer. Rachel texted, apologizing, begging for forgiveness, trying to explain. I didn't reply. Their words meant nothing now. Silence was the only answer I could give. Friends started noticing. Some called to check in, unaware of the betrayal. Others heard rumors and took sides. The truth spread faster than I expected. My husband's reputation at work wavered. Rachel found herself isolated. People who once praised her loyalty now questioned it. Meanwhile, I focused on Lily. I wanted to protect her from everything, even from the knowledge that the people she trusted most had failed her mother. We ate breakfast together, played in the yard, and I watched her laugh, feeling a mix of heartbreak and relief. This was what mattered. This was real. The sense of betrayal lingered like a shadow, but it didn't control me. Each day I chose to move forward, small step by small step. Bills were paid, routines were rebuilt, and slowly, the emptiness left by their betrayal began to shrink. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't anger. It was reclaiming what was mine, my life, my dignity, my family. What mattered most. And though they had ruined what they could, they hadn't ruined me. Time has a way of teaching what words never can. In the weeks and months that followed, I learned to pay attention to the quiet warnings I had ignored. The late nights, the small excuses, the subtle changes in behavior, none of them were coincidences. They were signals, and I had chosen comfort over instinct. That choice had cost me years of trust, but it also taught me something more important: I could survive anything. I learned that betrayal doesn't only hurt. It clarifies. It forces you to see the people around you, the life you live, and your own strength in a way you never imagined. I realize that loyalty is rare. It's precious. And the people who are capable of betraying you aren't worth your energy. Most importantly, I learned that my daughter would always come first. Every decision I made after that night was guided by her safety, her happiness, and her sense of trust in the world. Protecting her meant I had to protect myself too. I also realized that letting go isn't weakness, it's power. Walking away from the people who hurt me gave me freedom I hadn't known I was missing. And freedom, I discovered, was the strongest revenge of all. By the end of it, I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't broken. I was awake. I was aware. And I was ready to rebuild a life that was truly mine, honest, steady, and untouchable by the people who had once tried to steal it. Months passed, and life began to settle into a new rhythm. The house I had once left behind felt smaller in my memory than the one I had created for myself now. Every morning, I woke up knowing that the choices I made were mine alone, and that gave me a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. Lily laughed again, freely and without worry. I watched her grow, little by little, each day a reminder of why I had walked away, why I had chosen survival over sorrow. We spent weekends in the park, weekday mornings making pancakes, evenings reading stories together. Our life was quieter, yes, but it was real, and that mattered more than any illusion of perfection. Mark and Rachel were gone from our daily lives. Their presence lingered only in memories, but those memories no longer had power over me. I realized that betrayal only lasts as long as you allow it to. I refused to let their actions define my future. I learned to trust again, slowly, carefully. Not everyone got a place in my life, but the ones who did were there because they had earned it, not because of habit or convenience. I rebuilt my boundaries, my home, my heart, and in doing so, I found a strength I hadn't known existed. Some nights, I still think about that moment I opened the bedroom door. The shock, the pain, the disbelief. But now, instead of anger or sadness, I feel clarity. I survived what many wouldn't. I protected my daughter. I reclaimed my life. And in that reclaiming, I discovered something more powerful than trust or betrayal. I discovered me. I was no longer the woman who lost everything in a single night. I was the woman who chose herself. And that was the beginning of everything I deserved.